Hello and welcome to Adventure's Edge. Tell us more, number 3.
Yes, please tell us more.
This is Don, and with me I have
Rochelle.
And we are going to be speaking more about the world of Tellus in this edition.
Yeah.
Yeah. We put this off a little longer than we planned on, and some people have been asking for it. They're saying, give us more, tell us more.
I'm not even sure if you're serious right now or not. I'm so sorry. Yes, absolutely. I'm sure that's the case.
We had at least one person sincerely ask for more.
Oh, okay. Wonderful.
But we know that the masses are crying for it internally.
But you know what? Hey, one person, thank you.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to go back to the beginning of time, to creation itself. And we're going to talk about the cosmology and the divinity of the world of Tellus.
Okay. I like that.
You like it?
I do.
Okay. So you have a flowchart in front of you.
I do. I like flowcharts.
And for people at home, if you've not yet gone out to adventuresedgerpg.com, I continue to publish things out there. It is a wiki-styled webpage, and there is now a creation page with this amazing flowchart, which you can peruse.
Oh my gosh. There's a flowchart for the people too?
Oh, no.
Oh.
The people, not yet.
Oh.
The
No, is this flowchart on the wiki?
Oh, yeah. This flowchart.
That's what I meant, for the people.
Oh, I thought you said a flowchart for people. But yes, for people to look at.
Yes.
It is out there right now.
That's awesome.
Yep. So in the beginning, we have the progenitor, the alpha god. Oh, I don't want to say that.
No, don't say that.
Sorry.
It's just the progenitor.
We've gone so far saying there are no alphas. The beginning, the progenitor, the creator, the divine force, the first mover, all that stuff, who created the world of Tellus. Now, in our previous episode, we did talk about the physical world and it being a disk, and we kind of got into some of those details. Mm-hmm. If you haven't listened to that, it would probably help if you check that out. But Tellus is a flat world. And when the progenitor created the world of Tellus and the cosmic boom, we had the world coming to existence and all the bits and pieces starting to work. After the progenitor finished creating the world and putting the final touch on it, we had the first cosmic unraveling.
So I think you're saying this wrong.
I'm saying this wrong?
Yeah.
Tell me.
So you and I talked about all of this cosmology when you were envisioning how this all began.
Right.
And you just made it sound like the progenitor created this. And I don't think that's it. Like, the progenitor poured themselves into this creation.
Oh, yes. That really is a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
That their essence became their creation.
Yeah. They invested themselves into the creation of Tellus. And through the investment of themselves into Tellus, that is what created the first maelstrom. Thank
you. You know what? You really, I love how you put that. And that is accurate. And that speaks to this notion of unraveling, which becomes a thread that goes through both the cosmology and also in a lot of the ways magic works in the world. So we've got that. We've got this beginning. Now, we're not going to really talk about what the progenitor was. That's like this.
At this point,
nobody knows.
No one knows, yeah.
Yeah. But you did bring up the next thing that occurs is after the creation, we have the first maelstrom, which is basically this cosmic storm of divine energy just washing over creation and encompassing it, the remaining energy that was the progenitor. And basically, it's this huge storm that goes on, then rages for 1,000 years.
A very long time.
A long time, a nebulous amount of time. But eventually, that energy begins to coalesce. into larger groupings, which over time,
Let's call them pools.
pools
Pools of magical energy begin to coalesce in various spots throughout the world of Tellus.
And in time, there's 5 distinct larger pools than all the other little tiny ones that might be still infused in the creation.
And the larger pools begin to develop
Awareness. Yes,
Yeah.
awareness. Yeah. The lingering consciousness of the progenitor manifests itself in different ways, different aspects, perhaps of its original personality, if it had one, because these 5 have actually like some personalities and motivations that go beyond sheer creation. But the act of creation is like in their DNA. Like they exist to create, much the way that they exist because of creation. And that's another theme. So we're gonna hit these five pretty quickly because they're not the current 5, and that's an important distinction. And they also do not have. There's not a equity of power between these 5, the first greater gods.
I have a question for you.
Hit me.
Is 5 your favorite number?
No, it is not.
Then why did you choose 5?
Do you really want to know? You asked me. So I chose 5. The short answer is the simplicity of it, keeping things sort of streamlined.
You know what's more simple than 5?
3.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that I was heavily influenced by some other creators who have put out material that suggests that when you're building a divine system, that creating 5 gives you this idea, this pattern that you can kind of create beings in opposition, and this pentacle design. And I was impressed by it. I thought it was a great idea. I knew I didn't want to have 100.
Okay, you're already going on too long.
Okay. Anyway, 5.
Wait. Do you know what my favorite number is?
23.
Okay, lower, like small, like.
Oh gosh, 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
You sure you don't want just 3? Too
No.
late? Okay,
No.
fine.
In one of my previous creations, I had 3.
Whatever.
Yeah. But here
All
we
right,
have 5.
but now we've got 5, and
Okay.
they're not equally strong.
They're not equally strong.
Okay, should we go strongest to weakest or weakest to strongest?
Dealer's choice.
You're the dealer, though.
I guess it's my choice.
Oh,
All right, we'll go strongest.
okay.
So the one that got the lion's share of the progenitor's essence is Axios.
Okay.
Now, Axios, being those powerful, also basically started doing the initial creation because they were still driven to create. But all of these beings were tied to the world of Tellus. Like their essence and the progenitor, all that is sort of interconnected. And all of these beings basically begin to assess the creation itself and where they fit into it and how to keep it going. Because unlike in real cosmologies, right? Tellus is not quite a machine, but it is a construct and required maintenance. It required entities to keep the gears going. And Axios realized that the heart of the physical world of Tellus is this infernal machine, like this vast, vast, complex machine, and it needed people to maintain it. So Axios created the first people, which were the infernals.
Okay. So it is. All right.
Ooh, hit me. Questions. Keep this interesting.
So is Axios like? Is that a play off Axis?
I don't know that specifically. I mean, there is definitely some phonetic similarities there, and
there are.
It is the center mass of it, but no, not specifically.
I already hate Axios.
You hate the name or the being?
Yes.
Wow, that's harsh.
Just because of his name, I think. I mean, like, and what Axe body spray? Like the whole thing. I just have this. I automatically have this like no. Not for me. Thank you.
Well, that's okay because in design here, he is, or they are supposed to be kind of the villain, right? They create the Infernals who are cast down into the Infernal Machine to begin running the world of Tellus from the inside. And then they also do create the dragons, but not right away. But that's what they're known for. The dragons are one of their last creations before the Cosmic War.
Okay.
So the next being in line who has not quite as much power as Axios is Eurus. That's Uris.
Okay.
And Eurus eventually creates the Celestials. Now, you may notice kind of a duality there. We're kind of dealing with some traditional ideas that have been turned upside down.
I don't see how they're turned upside down, but okay.
Well, we can get into that later. But Eurus creates the Celestials to begin tending to the world itself. That is like the initial goal.
Okay. So we've got some under and some on the surface.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, seems pretty traditional right now. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, we can talk about that in a bit because I want to just keep this as swift moving as we can. All right. Third god, Nalene. Again, Nalene and Eurus are pretty much on par with each other.
Do they like each other? Are they friendly?
Yeah, there's definitely some friendliness. Are the ones that kind of create the first alliance. There we go. That's a word. They create the first alliance, and that's going to be out of necessity because of what's to come. So Nalene creates the Fae. And mind you, these three races are the first races, but they're also the immortals.
Okay.
And we're not going to discuss exactly where the Fae were put, but they have a spot in the world. Okay. Number 4 in line, Ogmus. Now, Ogmus is the weaker of these initial 4, and Ogmus does not right away create any races. But Ogmus basically begins trying to understand the machine itself and the workings of magic and how everything that the creator put into place, but doesn't actually create anything yet.
Okay.
And then the 5th and final of the initial 5 is Silverel. Now, Silverel is very different from the others.
Yes, because the others are blue and Silverel is green.
Yes, on the flow chart. And there's a reason for that. Because whereas the other 4 are like independent forces or agents that are acting in and around the world, Silverel's not that. And Silverel is also like the weakest one. And it really is almost just barely in the top 5. But what Silverel is that this pool of the progenitor basically settles in this one spot in the world and sprouts the one tree. And that tree does begin influencing the world, but not like the rest. Because as it grows, it begins sending its roots out throughout the surface of the world. But basically, it's its own entity.
And it's place bound.
It is place bound.
And the other 4 are not place bound.
Right. So it doesn't have the ability to go. It's a giant, perhaps sentient, that's the belief by elves, tree.
Oh, but we don't know if it's sentient or not?
Yeah. Yes, it's sentient. We'll just say it.
Oh.
But that's like meta knowledge from people who are outside of everything versus like people who are like playing the game. But if this was gonna be put into a handbook and you would read it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's sentient. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
That was too many words. Okay. So now we have time passes, and basically what happens is Axios decides that it really wants to just be the only one. It wants to just run everything. It feels like it's doing most of the work, maintaining the infernal machine with all of its infernals down there. And so Axios then creates the dragons, with its initial in mind, where it was basically at that point going to try to overthrow the other gods.
Oh. All right.
Right. And then we have the first like cosmic war.
Okay.
Yep. So
How? Okay.
tell me.
Well, I was just going to say, how would they do that? How would Axios overthrow the others? Like, are they able to consume one another's magics? Like, just swallow it up?
I don't know. Maybe through harming them.
Mm.
Because the way I envision these beings is that they exist as an entity, not as a immaterial, everywhere all at once sort of thing. Like they're a powerful energy, but also
they're a powerful energy force that has coalesced into this being.
Yes.
And so if I were Axios, then I wouldn't let anybody know. I would just like head on over to Silverell and I'd like gobble up Silverell piece by piece, grow a little bit more, and then I'd be like, where's Ogmus? And then Ogmus. And then I'd go over and do the same thing to Ogmus. And then by that time, I'd be big enough that I could probably take on Eurus and Nalene and just be like, haha. And then it's all over.
All over.
Anyway,
so, okay.
But that's not what happened. That's my plan for domination.
That would lead to a different story ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was my plan for domination. Thank you.
That's a great one.
Okay.
So, and I want to keep this as high level. Like I'm sure there'd be some great stories, involved. But basically, Axios begins waging war, attacks Eurus.
See, that's where he went wrong.
That's where they went wrong.
Dummy. All right. Attacks Eurus.
Not able to defeat Eurus. And Nalene comes to aid them. And Eurus and Nalene basically, as an allied force, begin waging war on Axios. Ogmus basically stays out of the fray, and Silverell is really not able to assist, being a tree. So this cosmic struggle goes on. Nalene and Eurus, they all realize apparently they aren't able to destroy each other, but they are weakening each other.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So what Eurus and Nalene come up with Ogmus's aid is there's 2 moons, by the way. We explain those in the other Tellus more.
Right.
They create a prison. Basically, Ogmus facilitates the design because Ogmus is really into building things like structures. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ogmus helps build this prison while Eurus and Nalene are keeping Axios busy. And all the Infernals and Celestials and Dragons are waging war on each other. Finishes the prison. Eurus and Nalene lure Axios into it and ultimately trap Axios in this prison, supposedly for all time.
Okay, so you said you want to keep this high level, so I don't know if you want to go into this, but how does one lure Axios into a moon? Like, how would you or do we not have that answer?
I don't really have that specifically from a story form.
Oh.
I mean, if we were going to talk it through, Axios probably doesn't even understand the idea of a prison yet. So, one of them feigns weakness and is pursuing that as an entity and thinks, oh, they're hiding out of the moon, and they go in and it's a trick. Then you turn around, they're like, ha-ha, and then they close the door. I mean.
Okay.
There you go. That's the 50,000 foot view of it. It was really dramatic.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Axios is taken out of the picture. However, in that final battle, because it was still very dramatic, weakened from all the fighting and the final sealing of this door, because basically what they had to do is they had to infuse this prison at the end with their energies. And Eurus and Nalene die.
Oh.
Yeah. So they
unravel.
Oh. And that is actually where we have kind of the first big problem. Well, no, it's not even the first one. It's the second one. That becomes the second maelstrom. So, because there's still a lot of energy that leaks back into the world. And, they've all been busy making things. The world has been developed. We've got life. We got empires building. We got the Celestials and the Infernals and with the Fae. And Ogmus is kind of left there holding the bag. Silverill's over there going, hmm. So Ogmus, being this builder creator type, has to come up with a way to basically manage or channel all of this energy to keep it from destroying the world, and suspects that in doing so, it's going to mean the elimination of itself.
Okay.
So Ogmus creates the giants.
Oh.
And imparts to them all the knowledge it has about building and the knowledge of what it's about to do. And basically tasks them with maintaining world order and maintaining these pillars that it begins to erect. And then Ogmus raises the world pillars, which are these colossal, like black crystalline towers that there. I think there's 7 of them, but there's a bunch of them that ring the disc, that act as like lightning rods, that eventually take all this energy and begin to channeling it into flows, and turning it from a destructive force into a controlled, contained force that can eventually begin moving in patterns across the world, creating ley lines, and also really ultimately creating the foundations of what will be magic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But that unravels.
That unravels Ogmus. Ogmus is gone, and now all of the 4 greater gods are out of the picture.
Well.
And we just have Silverell. Well, yeah, exactly. Well, but Axios.
So we still have the power of 3 gods, but the 4th god's power is not on the planet now.
It's not. Now, he was weakened in the battling.
So some
of his power did eke back into during the war.
Well, this sounds terrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like horribly, horribly frightening.
Mm-hmm.
I want off this planet.
Okay, so time passes. The giants do what they need to do. They begin, maintaining these pillars and creating their own, and basically helping maintain the world. The Infernals are basically condemned to maintaining the Infernal engine. The Celestials, because the world gets really damaged in this. When it started out, basically the continent, like it was primarily like a Pangea type world. Like the continents were shattered. The Celestials leave because they end up they take it upon themselves to be like the eternal vigilant guardians that will watch over the moon of Karos. And they go up to the other moon and settle there on Lunas and build cities. And they leave the world.
Okay.
And basically at this point, it's the Fae are here, but their world is their homeland is
wrecked.
Yeah. So they managed to survive this, though. There's the giants who are rebuilding, the dragons kind of going off and doing their own thing. And then at this point, Silverell finally gets in on this whole creation thing because it needs somebody to come maintain the force, because it's really kind of created this bond with nature and the forest and the trees and all that. It creates the elves to basically become guardians of itself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of dark, actually.
Yeah.
It just created servants for itself. Like that's what it did.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well, I mean, they get benefits. All right. And then...
Yeah, I've heard that story before.
After everything has kind of settled down,
mm-hmm.
the dragons, who are really powerful beings, mind you, they were actually more powerful than the Infernals and the Celestials and all that. That actually, thinking about where some of that power went, Axios put a lot of his power into creating the dragons. So the dragons are the first, like, immortal sentient race to create another race. And at this point, they're the only ones to have done that.
Okay.
And they create a race of people to serve them. And they create the kobolds.
This is a disturbing pattern I'm seeing.
Okay. Yeah. This is, okay. So time passes. Eventually we have sort of this repeat where all this controlled energy from the second Maelstrom and then the third one from Ogmus that has been maintained begins to settle and coalesce once again. Perhaps there is a grand design in this pattern of 5. Now you speak of it, maybe. But this time, 5 pools form, and they are, because of all the controlled matter, they are actually very equitable in power, but fractionally powerful as the original greater gods. And that's where we get the current pentacle.
How do they compare to Silverel?
That is a fantastic question. I will just say that they're more powerful than Silverel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think Silverel has a lot of power, but being rooted completely changed, really kind of changes how it can manipulate the world. But by spreading the elves and also by spreading its tendrils, its roots throughout the world itself, underground, it's created this network where it can basically influence the world in different ways.
So is it actually a tree or is it more of a fungus?
That's a really interesting question. I still see it as a tree because in my mind, I know where you're going with like the fungal network we've seen on various shows that have kind of explored that. I think that there is definitely a similarity though, that it's because this is obviously not natural, that these roots, tendrils even, like reach out everywhere. Very much like unbeknownst to most people, how far it can influence and touch.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about the current pantheon.
Current pantheon. We've got 5 gods, and this is like the current era. We'll just go left to right here. Do you want to just spit one out here?
Okay. Well, if I start at the left, that's Asana.
Asana. Now, I don't know how much we want to go into each of these specifically as far as like their nature. I have a little write-up. There's like a paragraph to 2 paragraphs for each god that kind of talks about them and what their ideologies are. I think instead of reading that, people can go out and read a little bit more. But we can kind of maybe cover like what their ideals are, which doesn't totally represent it. I think Asana is the one that is probably the most interesting to people who are listening to the current story, because we've heard that name and we've heard Tobris the most. Yeah. And it's still been kind of this mystery about Asana. I mean, there's like this idea of the sun theme and the laughing and this child. So there's a lot of little things we've heard about Asana. Basically, she's a chaos force. And it's not bad. It's not good.
It's just chaotic.
It's just chaotic.
Laughing. Yeah. Funny. Haha, I tricked you.
Yeah. And sometimes she aids and sometimes she harms, but she's a force. And each of these gods thus far have only created one race. So Asana is the patron god of the goblins, who are very much forces of chaos in the world.
Okay.
Next up, we have
Tobris.
I think we've heard a lot about Tobris on the show, whereas Trunk maybe worships Asana. There's still a little question there. Daerun definitely is a worshiper of Tobris. Tobris is the primary dwarf god, as Tobris created the dwarfs. That's how there's that affiliation there. And Tobris is very much all about technology and building and knowledge and progress and empathy and community. And it's like the hammer and the tools and working and building society.
And so one of the interesting things that I know that you've talked about before, however, is that all of these current pantheon people or individuals in the pantheon have different faces that are perceived by the different
races.
The different races. And so Tobris, for the dwarves, is often seen as that builder one, and then by the humans manifests as Ashira, the wind mistress.
The wind mistress, because Ashira gave them ships and sailing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's still that exploration, that progress kind of,
Yeah.
that kind of ideal. But Tobris did create the dwarves.
Yes.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then we get to Eitvar.
Eitvar. I like that name. Eitvar is humans, created humans. And Eitvar is strength and valor and retribution and justice. Some of the symbols also include like this white wolf, the scales of justice, a great bow. Like it's hunting, because it also has another face. Eitvar also has a duality, which is Arias. So it's Arias and Eitvar. So, which is kind of interesting, is that these two gods, Eitvar and Tobris, each have the biggest influences between the humans and the dwarves. And it's like Eitvar, created the humans, but then also kind of appeared to the dwarves as this hunter figure. And Tobris created the dwarves, but then appeared to the humans, as the explorer and, traveler and wanderer. So there's this sort of cross thing. And each of those two different peoples didn't definitely not know that the other kind of worshiped the same gods, just with different faces. So there you go. That's fun.
All right.
Okay. Number 4 on the countdown to 5 gods, we have Kurgan. Kurgan is the god of death and law. Some of the symbols we've got also known as the timekeeper and
countdown to death.
We see like the hourglass and clocks. Kurgan basically is kind of like the god of death that has taken up the mantle of ushering people into the great wheel as their souls rejoin with the world itself, the endless river that circles the disc. So Kurgan is the one that sort of is running the dead show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And Kurgan made the trolls.
And Kurgan made the trolls.
Okay.
And Kurgan also has a duality. As a male-female duality, because the trolls see Kurgan as Kiris, which is this harsh queen of the trolls that kind of created them and helps them through the bitter winters and the tundra. But they still have this whole time and death theme going on with that.
All right.
Yep. All right. Last and certainly not least,
Numara.
You said before you liked the name.
I do like the name Numara because it's very soothing. Like it's a soothing kind of name.
It's a soothing name for a soothing god.
Yeah.
Numara is the god of life and tradition. And there's a lot of different aspects that people kind of equate to that about, the birth and, maybe some elements of nature. And sometimes there's the elements of water and playing in the surf. And Numara has 3 faces. Like there's 3 aspects to Numara, which is definitely influenced by, mythology, which is like the child, the matron, and the crone. But each of those aspects appear to different cultures. So Numara created the merfolk, the people of the sea.
All right.
Yep.
So these 5, you said they have relatively equal power.
Mm-hmm.
And they mostly get along?
They mostly get along. I mean, I don't see these deities as like ever being at war with each other, but they can be potentially at odds because obviously idealistically, some of them, I mean, they're all in opposition, at least with at least one other 2 other gods. And, when you've got Asana being a force of chaos, that can cause problems. You've got this kind of warlike god.
With
the goblins.
Oh, well, so like Asana would be opposed to who?
Well, you kind of look at, there's a pentacle image on the webpage that shows the 5 symbols.
Yes.
So like Asana is that force of chaos and is kind of at odds with Aitvar and Kurgan.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And when I say at odds, like there's because it's the pinnacle and, there's basically three-sided triangles basically. So you have one point goes out to two different points. And the idea is that each god has two other gods that are at least in some way thematically in kind of an opposition, even if it's not a direct like contradiction, but that's how it kind of lays out.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah.
But it's also how things are kept in balance.
Mm.
So the last bit that I would just want to point out quick, because we've talked about all the races that have been created, but after that final maelstrom, and with these, and while these five gods were being created, and then they created these other races, the goblins, dwarves, humans, trolls, and merfolk, there were three other races that were created spontaneously that do not have a patron god. And those are the gnolls, the Atrali, and the reptilians. They're also, out of all of these, really they're truly the bestial races, because they were basically actual existing creatures that sort of were infused and granted sentience, and they sort of
Through wild magic.
their wild magic evolved into something else.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. It's like our dogs just stumbled into something that suddenly made them able to be like, oh, hey, I would like my dinner now, not later. And then they can just go open up their own food.
Kind of, yeah.
That'd be horrifying.
And that's also why these particular races have very different relationships with the other races. So yeah, we're at 40 minutes. I think I kind of want to speak to that at least in brief, because there's one more thing about these races. I think we should do a race show. But like all the other races, like were created by a god, like they weren't evolved. They were created fully formed, but they were also each given knowledge, language, technology. They didn't have to start from scratch.
Mm.
Whereas the gnolls, the Atrali, and reptilians did. And that is really the only true inequity between the races. Those are the only ones that had like savagery in their background, because they were actually truly primitive, because they didn't have culture given to them.
Okay. I hear the words you are saying.
Do you have a question about that?
I mean, I have a lot of questions about that, but I don't know that we really have time to go into that. And I think that would probably be best for another show where we are talking in depth about.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, because I think that's a different topic.
All right, then we will have another topic.
All right.
All right, well then that's the cosmology, the deities, the pantheons. There we go. Creation in a nutshell. There's a little bit more you can read on the website, and we will try to do some more of these shows sooner than later.
Yeah, for the one person that's interested. hey person.
I am so I should have had his name.
I wish you did, because I'd like to say hi to that one person, and then and maybe they want to listen again. If you listen again, hi, and yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for staying with us, being with the show, and we will talk at you soon.
Yep. Bye.
All right, bye.